The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. This is Carolyn Betts and Catherine Austin Fitz. Polly's off this week, and we're going to miss her because we are going to talk about local pushback. And of course, Carolyn, we know there's nobody who pushes back better than Polly. With the possible exception of our guest today, this is a person who pushes back locally. She's been a mayor. She spent years on the city council. If anybody can lead us in pushing back locally, we've got the person for you. She's joined us before, Reinette Senum. She will be on shortly. Let's roll through the news first. And Carolyn, welcome back. It's exciting times.
Yeah. Not always in a good way.
Yeah, so Carolyn just watched the telecommunications committee in the House confer, and it was frightening. But we're going to do something about it. We are not going to finance our own prison. So let's roll into the news, Lou. First story: the CDC has had to finally change back or walk back what they say about vaccines and autism. We all know vaccines cause enormous neurological damage. So finally, we get a little bit of movement. But I just finished watching an interview about what's going on in HHS and the MAHA movement, and it's trench warfare. And right now, one guy who got fired from HHS said MAHA is hanging by a thread. It's not hanging by a thread in the country, but it is hanging by a thread in official Washington. Anyway, so next clip, Lou. So I got a wonderful email from Anne, who has been writing for years for Age of Autism, which is one of the premier websites and blog that covers autism. And she was discussing and pointed to an article she just wrote, which is exactly what Toby Rogers, great economist, has been telling us was going to happen in the United States. And that is the costs of autism to the educational institutions in a municipality are causing enormous expenses. And this is her article, Councils Face Total Collapse Due to the Cost of Special Education. And we know from looking at the HHS budget that the costs of the damage from pharmaceuticals is bankrupting the country. But I can tell you as an investment advisor, it's also bankrupting families, and it's going to roll into the municipalities as well. And this is important because one of the things I've seen, Carolyn, in this meet and greet cycle is how angry people are about increases in property taxes and all sorts of shenanigan at the local level. So this is hitting us now at an intimate level, and that's why our show today is on local pushback against the hardware that is now being installed to build the digital concentration camp. So at Solari, we've been covering the Flock contracts. Flock is a company that installs cameras and does surveillance of license plates. And we've been covering it extensively. It's now gone into the courts. There are fights all over the country. And we've put together a collection called Pushback Against Local and Locally Funded Surveillance. And make no mistake about it, if you look at the drone contracts, the Flock camera contracts, and now what we're going to be talking about today, the telecommunications, as well as the data centers with water and energy, at a local level, the customer or the local taxpayer is being expected to pay for the building of an extraordinarily expensive and environmentally damaging control prison. I mean, it's the digital concentration camp. And so now, as you watch the hardware be installed, what citizens are realizing is, wait a minute, this is not okay. We are paying for this. We are going to push back. Under the law, you can't just do this and get away with it. So This is going to be a very interesting process, and we'll talk about it. In the meantime, the Solari Cash campaign is rocketing, and more people around the world are understanding the danger of letting the system go all digital. So we just came through Halloween, Cash is King Halloween, and we have bumper stickers. Our Substack is going with lots of information, but what we've gotten back are just amazing stories of inspiration of what's happening as more and more people use cash, or they put out cash on Halloween. It was so funny, Carolyn. One of our subscribers wrote in and said the parents said the kids wouldn't want cash, but the kids loved it.
Right.
So we're going to do a cash and coin Christmas campaign. Give cash for people who need spending money, give coin for people who want to invest. So more on that later. But Ireland has now done this cash mandate, and so the Irish, the Irish are the best freedom fighters in Europe. There's no doubt about it. But they now have mandated cash acceptance, and we know Solari has model legislation to mandate state governments have to take cash. So if you're interested, go to our Financial Transaction Freedom website, get that model legislation, and get that passed, because we need to keep cash alive. Any other comments on cash from you, Carolyn?
It's important. I've been spending cash, and I mean, I keep taking more and more money out of my bank account, and I definitely notice more when I'm spending. It's easy to hand over a credit card, although I use a debit card generally, and I write down what I spend in a checkbook, which I gather most people don't do. But I notice how much I'm spending even more when I'm spending cash.
So Leslie Mnookin told a great story down at the CHD conference on our panel, and I think that's going to be available from CHD. And I hadn't heard about it when they tried to close off the use of cash in Thailand. There was a huge boycott of credit cards, and they had to roll it back. Well, don't comply. I keep telling people, if we can roll back the Cracker Barrel logo, we can roll back anything, right? So,
Well,
anyway.
yeah, and the credit card companies and even Apple are getting into preparing for digital ID connected to the credit card. So, that even emphasizes even more the importance of keeping cash alive.
Right. So we just had a meeting at Solari on how to migrate away from Apple completely. So, okay, so let's turn to the latest outrage, and that is telecommunications. So, Renata has a wonderful Substack and has done 2 excellent videos on what's going on. Maybe we should show a clip of one of those.
See that pole? See that? Now, when you look up on that pole, you're going to see these big old lines right here. Big old huge broadband. It's now, folks, and this is it. It is tangible. The digital prison, the backbone is right there for all of you to see. It's there. It's ready to go. They locked us down for COVID for a multitude of reasons, and one was to silently, in the deep, darkest part of the night, while you're all in your deep REM sleep, to install this backbone quietly without you seeing it.
Yeah, it's great. One of the things she covers is during the pandemic, she would get up in the middle of the night and drive around and watch the utility trucks come out and install them. So we also have a clip. So one of the things we're going to talk about is the FCC and the telecommunications committees in the House are trying to roll out an overrun local control, and we're going to have her explain it. But we do have one other clip, Lou, and let's watch that.
I've been handling matters under the Federal Telecommunications Act since it was adopted back in 1996. I've seen every type of federal legislation, state legislation, and local government legislation regarding the regulation and placement of wireless facilities throughout the United States. Today, I'd like to speak about HR 3557, which is, quite frankly, in my view, scary. It is the most deceptive, insidious, and I would have to say evil piece of proposed legislation I've ever seen having anything to do with the Telecommunications Act or wireless facilities. HR 3557 is by far the most evil piece of legislation I've ever seen. It's actually designed to strip all powers from state and local governments at all from having any power over the placement of these facilities, and basically to allow site developers and carriers to basically put cell towers on people's front lawns without paying them, and leaving the homeowners and the local governments and the state governments entirely powerless to stop them.
So we're talking about complete override attempted of not only the Constitution and states' rights, but over private property rights. It's incredible. But before we bring Renata on, let's talk about the term of the day. And because the start of this, I associate with the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So that's our term of the day. So take it away, Carolyn.
Yes, the Telecommunications Act of 1996 was the first update to what was in effect since 1934. And it did some things that were clearly very necessary, which was to establish networks and rules that would, for example, allow a small carrier to hook into the lines of Verizon or AT&T, for example. So you get some benefits of from this act, but it was a very broad act. And the part that we are fighting right now, the part that is of great concern, and there are a lot of parts that are of great concern, but it has not been updated since 1996. And the Committee on Communications, let me get the right name. Subcommittee on Communications and Technology had a markup of 28 bills that were intended to update, some of which bills were introduced by largely Democrats to cut back on what the larger bill that this gentleman was talking about were doing. But the Telecommunications Act, the part that's of great concern and that Children's Health Defense has been covering a lot is Section 704. And Section 704 starts with language that sounds really good. It says, except as provided in this paragraph, and that's the really bad part, nothing in this act shall limit the authority of state and local government or instrumentality over decisions regarding the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities. And read, among other things, cell towers. But in the limitations, it says, a state or local government or instrumentality shall act on any request for authorization to place, construct, or modify personal wireless service facilities within a reasonable period of time. And this has been the one area where localities and presumably states have been able to drag their feet and not approve cell towers because it's vague. It says within a reasonable time. They have to present a written response to the application by the telecommunications company. But here's the really bad part. No state or local government or instrumentality may regulate the placement, construction, or modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's, that's the FCC's, regulations concerning the emissions. And those are low standards and haven't been updated either in accordance with medical findings on EMF, on basic radioactivity. And so what's happened is I went back and looked because I heard that the localities were not able to reject an application based on adverse health effects. So, for example, I had heard that they could put a cell tower on a school property. And we know there's one up the street from me, a great big cell tower on a grade school property. And I thought, wait a minute, the act itself only discusses environmental effects. Well, the fact is that the federal courts in a number of circuits, including Second, Fifth, Fourth, and Ninth, which includes New York, California, have held that environmental effects, as used there, includes health effects. So basically, it already says that a cell tower application can't be rejected on the basis of adverse health effects. And so you've had lots of people, and you can see in some of the coverage by Children's Health Defense, there are all sorts of people who can't have to move out of their houses that are near cell towers because of the adverse health effects. And also there's cancer and things like that. But the new what they're doing now is submitting the first amendments to the Telecommunications Act. And among other things, there would be something called I couldn't understand when they were talking about it, a shot clock, SHOT clock. And that means that if a locality, state or locality, doesn't reject an application for modification or a new cell tower or, expanding the radiation, if the locality does not respond in detail in writing, giving the reasons within a certain period of time, the application is automatically approved, which means that for example, a rural area, if there aren't enough people to even review the applications and really wrap their heads around it, and they don't meet that standard of responding in writing with detailed reasons why the application's turned down, it automatically is approved. So anyway, that's just a small part of the Telecommunications Act, but it's a very evil piece of legislation that was supported by corporate interests and in particular telecommunications interests. And the interesting thing I thought about the hearings is a lot of the emphasis is on expanding broadband access in rural communities. And so everybody's in favor of that, right? Everybody in the rural communities should be able to have fiber optic.
The number one preferred marketing for the digital concentration camp is inclusion.
Right. And
Inclusion.
that word came up a whole lot of times in the markup. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Reinette, who can tell us more.
Okay, so Reinette Senum has been mayor of Nevada City. She was on the city council for 15 years. She's been a broadcaster with her own show. She has a wonderful Substack. We strongly recommend you sign up for her Substack and follow her. But if you want to find a leader to teach you how to push back locally and to push back locally, here she is. And we can't thank you enough for joining us on Financial Rebellion. We're hoping you're going to join us a lot more, but I want everybody to listen to what you say, and I want them to sign up for your Substack, and I want them to start pushing back locally, and you're going to help us figure out how we all do that. So take it away.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and also thank you, Carolyn, so much. Yes, this is last week I put out a Substack called The Hill to Die On. And the reason why I said this was because what we're seeing right now, I assume to be happening in 2 to 3 years. And to be quite frank, I think the reason why we're seeing this on the fast track is because industry understands that we are waking up at an extraordinary rate, which is great. We're pushing harder and they're moving faster, which means ultimately they're going to get more sloppy. So one of the things that I was really highlighting last week was that most of us are hearing about the digital cage. We're hearing about digital, currency. We're hearing about the social credit system that we are seeing clearly in China, which is an absolute horrific example of a dystopian future. And yet we think it's out there, invisible, and it's not tangible. However, as you had mentioned earlier, Catherine, when I was mayor, when COVID struck, I would jump in my car, drive around, and began to see utility trucks coming in between 3 and 5:30 in the morning, only for 2.5 hours, which is not very cost effective, to extend the broadband from pole to pole while we were in our deepest sleep. And this wasn't just here in my community. This was, I found out, all around the country and
all around the world, which it clearly tells us, as I'd explained in my Substack, that this had to have been planned in tandem with the COVID lockdown and had to have taken years to actually organize, pay for, train, hire, all of that. And so it's clear that that is a part of the whole COVID pandemic scam. And so I was pointing out these very, very thick wires people are now seeing strung down rural areas, country roads, mountainous roads, city, urban landscapes. And they have these big kind of, cylinder shaped pieces of metal on them as well. And what people don't realize is while they are selling us like, oh, we want to give you broadband connectivity fast so you can get the best service, what they're not telling you is that is literally the framework to our digital cage. And all they need right now is to just remove all local authority, any say whatsoever, and that way they can just start to attach. Now, Scott McCullough, who has been fighting with CHD, for CHD against this overreach, and he had said that they wanted 5G millimeter wave antennas every 750 feet, but I've been told it's actually more like 400 feet. So they're planning on every street lamp, on electrical poles, buildings, people's churches, church steeples, flag poles, you name it. They want this everywhere. And so one of the things that you and I had discussed and with Carolyn, many weeks ago was that in China, they have this going, but what's interesting is that they can't quite get a full lockdown because they don't have that connectivity way out in the mountainous and rural areas. So they don't have a ubiquitous control over everybody. And so what I was saying is they don't have that here in America either right now. However, they would if the FCC's proposed rule changes go through. So what am I talking about? So essentially, the FCC made an announcement that they were going to make these rule changes. And this is what's called Build America Eliminating Barriers to Wireless Deployment. And it's docket 25-276. And it sounds really lovely, but really what it is a corporate technocratic coup upon all local governments. So whether you have city council members or county supervisors who perhaps don't really care about deployment of cell towers and radio frequency injuries and so on, they should care about this because what's happening is they want to destroy all local determination. These telecoms, the technocrats want to come on in and say, we don't care if you want certain setbacks. We don't care if you want some say in the public right of way. That means your streets and your sidewalks. That belongs to we the people. We don't care if you want to protect certain environments, cultural, historic. We don't care if you want to protect children, in playgrounds, ball fields, schools. Essentially, we can and we will deploy this anywhere, everywhere we want to, and you're not going to have any say. You're not going to be notified, you nor your city or county. There's going to be no public comment, no environmental impact of any sort whatsoever, no say, and we're going to do it. And you have no option. And so not only is this completely unconstitutional and illegal, but it's going to be eviscerating all local authority as we know it. And it's going to set a precedent that is going to allow any industry out there to come on in and do whatever they want in our communities. It is truly a corporate technocratic coup on local and jurisdictions and authority and government as we know it. So maybe you guys have some questions. I'll just kind of start right there. But
so could this also apply to the Flock and Skydio contracts as well?
It will apply to everything. They're setting a precedent. They're
Right.
literally saying local government no longer has a voice. And we're in control now.
Well, but can they put a cell tower on my private property?
Probably not. No, I don't think they could, but they can right in front of your home.
Right.
It was called the ROW, the road, the public right of way. They can do that. And they can put it on schools. And what they're also doing, they have something called OTARDs, over the air radio devices, which sounds just like what it sounds like, OTARD. What a name. But this is where they are actually going to business owners and residences, homeowners, and saying, hey, we'll pay you $1,000 a month for us to put this, millimeter wave on top of your home. So your
Right.
neighbor can do it. And they're called OTARDs. And you have no say. It's a private contract.
Right. And so here's the interesting thing. The compromise of property, because I do think this is a compromise of private property rights, because if you look at the invisible waves that are coming in, and they're killing people. I mean, we are talking about something and increasing the EMF sufficient to literally kill people.
It's assault and battery. It's actually, even though it's invisible, you can
Right.
consider it to be assault and battery because you are having frequencies come onto your property, into your home, whether you want them or not, and they are causing harm. It's not a matter if they're causing harm, they are causing harm. It just depends upon your epigenetics, your age, where you live, how much frequency you're getting, what you've done in your home. Are you wireless? Have you cleaned it out? I mean, there's all these different
Right.
factors, but nonetheless, it's causing harm to everything, to everything.
So I'll bring up one other thing. We just did an excellent interview on neurowarfare and another excellent start of a series on cognitive liberty. And it's about the technology that literally is being used. You know, we now see patents where they claim that AI or these technologies can read our minds. So we're talking about a level of coming in and literally being able to do surveillance in your bedroom, or, you know, or they claim they can read your mind in your bedroom and you can't stop it.
Well, and there are technologies to hook up human beings to computers, and I'm assuming that this network is a way of, you know, getting to people if they're every 450 feet or every 750 feet. And the fact is that for cell phone service, we, you know, almost all of us use cell phones, but for cell phone service, 4G, my understanding is 4G is perfectly adequate for that. So when you get to 5G, 6G, 7G, 8G, that's for weaponization and surveillance.
Right.
So
And
that's why they.
right. And we know that you know, so let's take a look at the data centers. The data centers are presumably for AI. What AI is good at is tracking things that can be simulated or tracked mathematically, which is essentially spatial surveillance and financial transactions. So what you're talking about is you're talking about building the infrastructure with the 5, 6, 7G and the data centers to basically track and manipulate people's money. And that's what you need to implement the social credit system that you were talking about and that we've talked about together on Financial Rebellion. You know, it's an enormous amount of data to imply a control system and to people. But let's go back to the pandemic. You're talking about between the data centers and now these sort of additions to the telecommunication system, the ability to literally say, okay, it's a pandemic, we can turn off your money if you leave your home, we can turn off your money if we say you can't buy pizza, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
And this is how they do it.
right.
Right. So what we're seeing is, and I'm trying to give some visuals to people, is that this is a chain that's going to ensure enslavement. And really, they've just got one last link. That's it left, which is scary, but it's also the Achilles heel. And that's where we can really just draw the line and drop the gauntlet. And that link are these cell towers, the actual antennas being just popped up everywhere because they've got that framework. The infrastructure's there. Those are those lines, or they're underground. It's
Right.
there. They just need to be able to put the antennas up without any interference whatsoever. What people also don't realize, there's a lot of really nefarious little things in the small print, but when a county or a city actually gives a contract to the telecoms and passes it, what people don't realize is those contracts are generally for 25 years, and more than likely they'll be even longer than that because it's just usually it's consent item. They just, with one, one fell swoop, they just approve everything on the consent items. There's no discussion, no public discussion, no anything, no environmental reviews. And then they add a different type of antenna. And so when those poles, those monopoles or the 5G on buildings, whatever, that's the telecom staking their environment, their real estate claim. This is essentially vertical real estate. And the reason why they want to claim it and oversaturate it is because when they stake that claim, they own you. They're going to surveil you. They're going to spy on you. They're going to control you. They're going to take all that data, where you're shopping, where you're spending, who you're with, where you're driving, what you're doing, all of your whereabouts, all of that data, they're going to collect it. And what we do know too, and you have to ask, why would the FCC do this? Was just a few years ago. The FCC opened up a bandwidth. Okay, so you have this spectrum, and they only allow so much of this bandwidth to be sold and auctioned off to the telecoms. And what they did was a few years ago is they opened it up to the millimeter wave, to the exact bandwidth that is actually weaponized, is militarized, is used in a theater of war in Iraq. And we have a couple examples of what it can do. In 1991, military was celebrating, this is so phenomenal. We used the millimeter wave, and what we did is we actually supplanted the voice of Allah into the soldiers and the farmers and the ranchers down below on the ground in Iraq, and we told them to give up their arms, put up their hands, and turn themselves in. It was a great win. It's like, wait, you did what to them? And then I had another roommate of mine who's a former Air Force flight surgeon saying, oh yeah, we used to fly above Middle East, and we would shoot down a beam of 5G, and we would scramble the brains of anyone down on the ground. And then the foot soldiers would come along after that and shoot and kill anybody who was moving or looked alive whatsoever. And I had asked her, I said, well, this is horrific. Exactly what would that experience be to somebody on the ground? Because, well, they just hear a lot of static and they would then just drop dead because we just scrambled their brains. These are the frequencies that the FCC put on the market. And now the telecoms have this available to them. Why? Why would they ever allow this? Okay, so there's that piece. So they stake their claim. They're for at least 25 years, but actually it's going to be longer. They have complete control, and they are monitoring everything. And if they want to, they can do a slow cook or they can target. And that's the difference with the millimeter wave, is the millimeter wave actually targets the phone. It targets the person, whereas 3G, 4G is just ubiquitous. It just send out the signal, you pick it up or you don't. There's that piece. The other hidden piece that people do not realize is that in most of all these telecom contracts with the counties and the cities, basically they say, okay, look, you can use whatever kind of technology you want. You can go for 3G, 5G, 10G, 20G, we don't care, as long as the antennas look like the original antennas when the whatever was installed. So that could be any kind of technology. So it could be a weaponized technology, which is now what we are seeing already, and there's nothing you can do about it. And while they may have it on the agenda to vote on, generally there's no notification. People have no idea. Again, it's under consent items, which means there's probably 10, 20 other agenda items. They just vote all one fell swoop, just like what we kind of saw with Congress the other day. And it's done. There's a switch and you have no idea. So this is also a Trojan horse. And I try to say to people, when I look at cell towers, I see it as a towering Trojan horse for the military industrial complex, the surveillance state, the whole digital dystopian, prison that we're talking about. This is the only way they can do it. The only way they can do it is by having these antennas everywhere. And while they do have satellite, there's more wiggle room there, but this is how they're going to do it. And
right.
So what's happened now is the FCC and congressional members are paving the path where nobody can stop it.
So let me explain why someone would do this. If you get this hardware installed, it gives the bankers the ability to run and control fiscal policy as well as monetary policy. And you can kiss elected representative government goodbye, right? Because now they have complete control and they can implement the digital concentration camp. So this is not just about surveillance, or this is not just about locking down or mind controlling your neighborhood. This is literally a coup d'etat. This takes over all representative government and it moves it under central control by the bankers. And that means taxation without representation, and that means they can decide where the federal money goes. So they can turn off every health mandate, every piece of food freedom legislation, every piece of health freedom legislation that has been passed to date can be reversed. Everything can be reversed. So this is not just a control of financial transactions. This is a control of everything, and literally a coup d'etat.
And if people want to have a clear visual of what this would look like and what's intended, all you really need to do is go to China. So when you see what they have as a full lockdown, and by the way, homelessness is skyrocketing in China. We're talking tens of millions of homeless people over the last few years because their social credit score is just going down. So that means they get locked into their apartment and can't leave, or they get locked out and are on the streets. They can't get a job, they can't jump on a bus, they can't jump on a train, and it is so locked down. And granted, what they have going is ever since that color revolution with Mao, they have been systematically training and brainwashing most Chinese into a hive mind. So they think alike. That's not here in America, but nonetheless, what they have is they have this orange netting around certain sections of neighborhoods and then turnstiles. And basically you are allowed or not allowed, according to your biometrics, or you hold up your phone to go into the next borough. And they have guards walking around that orange netting. And if you try to jump over it, I'm sure they'll just shoot you. But nonetheless, this is what they have. They have everyone locked down, and according to your social credit score, you may or you may not be able to move around. And if your score is so low, then basically you don't have your job, you don't get student loans, you don't get an apartment, and what's even worse is your family, your friends, if they associate with you, anybody with a low score, their score goes down.
Right. Yeah. So this system was implemented against Carolyn and I during our litigation, so we know all about it. So let's talk about what we do, because we're not going to let this happen.
No.
Okay. This is going to get turned around. So walk us through the steps we can take to figure out what's going on in our local area, push back, but also push back on the federal level, because our federal representatives need to know that this is unacceptable.
Well, first of all, I think that we must be already starting to do a good job, because the fact that the FCC is saying this is what we're going to do. We only have 2 FCC commissioners. We have a third one who's been appointed by Trump, needs to be approved by the Senate. Once that happens, then we'll open up public comment. So that was already set up, ready to go. There was a huge outcry. I was part of it. You guys have been part of it. CHD has been part of it. CHD attorneys have been part of it, just, blowing the horn. And what's really fascinating, Catherine, is that after this historic government shutdown, with absolutely no conversation about this before shutdown, out the gate, before people even realize the government's open, that they're actually in session, that their committees are in session, the first thing they did was they dusted off a 2023, just a whole slew of bills, essentially, which is what the attorney was referring to earlier, the most hideous bills ever. And they had their committee just a couple days ago, and they passed them all. So what that tells me is that we were definitely rocking the boat and rattling their cage, because they realized, they might be able to stop the FCC. So we're going to have to come in from this direction as well and get them if the FCC fails. So now what we need to do is that the first and foremost thing is simply build awareness. When people start freaking out, what do? I'm like, you talk to everybody, and you go to your city council members, and you go to your county reps, you go to public comment, and you say, hey guys, did you realize that this is what's going on? And you may not care about the deployment of cell towers, but you're going to be out of a job soon. There's not going to be a job. There's not going to be representation. You're just going to be puppets up there, and you're going to be just hollow. There's going to be nothing of substance there. So you explain to them what's going on, and we literally need to, and there is already motion there. We need cities to start gathering steam and coming together and pushing back, going to the League of Cities, like the California League of Cities, saying this is not okay. So the cities, the counties, this is literally an affront on all local authority. Then the other thing is, and I set up on Telegram yesterday specifically, I call this the hill to die on. This is on my Foghorn Express Substack. It's one specific category. That's where I give updates, but I want more than that. So one of the things that I was saying is that people don't realize how saturated our world already is with these frequencies. And so it's the weakness to our fight is you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. Unlike, let's say, the smoking ban that took many, many, many years, but you could go into a restaurant, a bar, in an airplane, and you could smell it, and you'd stink, and you'd sleep, and your pillow would smell like smoke the next morning. So this is the difficult part, right? You can't see it. So what we need to do, though, use these EMF meters to go around and start measuring everything. And so I have a Telegram channel called The Hill to Die On. Launched it last night. I think I've got 5 people on there right now. But the objective is to really use this as a depository for all of the meter readings. So this is called the RF Recon Unit, the Radio Frequency Recon Unit, we're calling ourselves. It's, this kind of citizen-powered effort to document the EMF readings, bring forward the videos. This is the place to collect it, evidence of the radio frequency saturation. And our objective is to expose what's going on, to build the public awareness about this technocratic coup. And this is being done through the FCC and our congressional members now. So that is a public awareness campaign. And I'm just going to keep
So this has passed through the committee, but it hasn't passed the Congress.
Oh no, it's got to go through the Senate. There might be another committee. I mean,
but it hasn't passed the House. It's passed the House committees out of committee, but it hasn't passed the House.
It's only passed the subcommittee.
So it hasn't passed the committee yet?
It's going to the Energy Committee next, and we have a link, which Luke could bring up if you want, who the members of the Energy Committee are. And
so we can stop it at the Energy Committee.
Yes.
We can also stop it at the Senate, and we can stop it at the White House. Because I have news for you. If President Trump signs this and you're part of MEGA, it's time to get, to leave. This is outrageous.
These are the members of the Energy Committee, and I have 2 in Ohio, and actually they're both on the subcommittee that just approved this. Landsman and Latta is the chairman of the subcommittee. But look at this. There are a lot of people from Florida, New York, California. If you're Michigan. These are the people who are going to be voting. And the fact is what they're stressing is, we need to get internet access to the people who live in the rural area.
So is there a letter, is there a template we can use to write to our representatives on the Energy Committee?
So we're actually working on several different real serious templates and all that. So what I suggest, and I say to people, keep coming back to the Substack, because this is it's a multi-layered fight, and and we've got a runway, and we have several train stops along the way where we can actually push back and kill it in its tracks. And so and we have to do a lot of formulating the different documents. We've got notices of liabilities we're working on to our senators regarding FCC commissioners that they're appointing and approving. We also can do a national data set that I can just kind of put forward saying, okay, this is what we've got going. This is the list. These are who you make the calls to, and here's your script. We can also do bond liability notices as well, right? So what people don't realize, and this is not across the board 100%, but they have these surety bonds or performance bonds. And essentially, if you have our representatives, they're derelict in duty, and what they're doing is unconstitutional or criminal, you can go after their bonds. You can actually contact the insurance company saying, do you realize the hot water that this member and this member and this member is about ready to get you all into, and the lawsuit? And they don't like that whatsoever. So there are things that we have to do. So I have a small team of people that I've gotten to know over the years, established, they're working on different documents. And once this goes forward, we're going to put it out there, blast it to everyone, say, okay, folks, you got some work to do, but we're making it as easy as possible, which is go get your meter, start reading what's going on, read everything from your modem in your house to the cell tower in your neighborhood. You are going to be shocked by how hot these things are. And simple, and just share that stuff, and we're going to collect that data. So we build the base, we show people we're already saturated. We do not need more towers and antennas. Once that is going on, then we're going to say, okay, folks, now's the time. Here's the notice. Here's the template. You got to print it out, certified mail. You send it off to these representatives, and it's a process, which is where we say the pen is mightier than the sword. You put them on notice, saying, okay, we're going into contractual law. You're going to put those antennas there. So obviously we're in contract. What people don't realize is contractual law supersedes constitutional law. So we're like, oh, we're going to a contractual law. Okay. So if that's the case, I have some questions for you. Can you prove this? Can you prove that? And you can ask the questions. Is it harmless? Have there been studies? Blah, blah, blah. And if they do not answer, which they never do because they can't prove it's safe, that is their admission that no, it's not. And then you give them a second notice, and then you give them a third notice. And what you're essentially doing is you are building up a case to take to court to say we've got their admission that they're causing harm, it's unconstitutional, and so on. We don't want 100 people doing this. We don't want 1,000 people. We want millions of people, because this is also where our strength lies is our numbers,
Right.
and people want action. And I'm like, I'm all about action. And I know that when you do a call to action, it's got to be pretty easy, pretty straightforward, simple, and actionable. And so we have different layers of action. You can go talk at public comment to your representatives. You can go out there and start using your meter everywhere, lend it to your friends, lend it to your neighbors, put that stuff online. That's why I've got the hill to die on for the depository for that. And then when it comes time, you get your printer, you print this out, and the pen is mightier than the sword. And we're going to start teaching people, holding your hand, teaching you what's been lost. They don't teach it in law school any longer. They don't teach it in high school, college, or history classes. Why? Because that is where the rubber meets the road, and we're going to use our pen to strike back.
So let me mention some other places they can strike back. If you look at all the companies that are putting these towers up in your neighborhood, and then you go look at your 401k and your IRA, what you're going to discover is you're financing them. And you can call your financial planner. You can push back along that line and say, I want to sell all these stocks. I want nothing to do with these
Verizon.
company. And you can push back. If you can vote proxy, you can show up at their annual meeting and start asking questions. So we're not going to talk about it today, but there's a huge line in the investment area, and the consumer area where you have the power to push back. You have the power to call them. You have the power to complain. You have the power to write to the board of directors, and on and on and on. Because basically, with our purchases and our investments, we are financing a group of people who are literally poisoning us and our families. And we have the ability through the investment line and the government line to push back.
That's correct. You have to hit them where it hurts, and it's monetarily. It's
Right.
monetarily across the board. It's monetarily. And if you have a city or county officials who are not going to make that stand, and they're just simply a vehicle for this corporate technocratic coup, you can hold them also liable as well. And they do have surety bonds, and you can really go after them. And again, people don't realize is that as elected officials, you're protected in your seat until you're committing a crime, until you're doing something unconstitutional. And when that happens, the door just opens wide open, and then you can go after them. So people don't realize this. They don't understand that they can have a redress of their grievances, but there's a process in doing it. There's a language to use. And this is where it's like, okay, folks, we're going to be having a classroom here essentially. We're going to start holding your hand and teaching you. But in the meantime, here's some other things you can do as we're starting to build this up and roll it down the track. And so that's why I say to folks, do go back to the Foghorn Express. The Hill to Die On is a special category. Also, for those of you who don't want to be on Substack, or you just want to go jump onto Telegram, we have that as available. That will be the depository as well. We'll have how-to videos there. We'll have other videos of people who are showing, like, look at this. I mean, we have people. And this is the other thing. This is what the FCC and Congress and the telecoms are afraid of, and this is very, very important, is there's also another little dirty secret people don't realize, is that within FCC guidelines, like, well, after over a 30-day period, you could only be through this amount of spectrum. And
Our city council in Hickory Valley, Tennessee only meets every 30 days.
wow, that's
Right.
insane.
That's true in many rural areas. You have volunteer city councils, and they only meet 30 days. And, I'll tell you what our city council does when they walk into the city council meeting. The first thing they do is they open the mail and pay the bills because there's no staff. They do the staff work.
Wow.
Right? Right. So,
Well, they need to be informed, because what happens is and we've had other experiences here I can't get into now that are extraordinary, that tell you how bad this is. But what they don't realize is they'll say, well, this is within FCC guidelines. First of all, US guidelines compared to, let's say, EU guidelines are totally different. And our cell towers and our devices are far, far, far hotter and more dangerous and risky than what's happening in Europe. But nonetheless, when you have, let's say, your planning commissioners or your council members saying, well, it's within FCC guidelines. It is, but the dirty little secret is this, is that they take the average over 30 days. And what they don't tell you is the telecoms can spike the energy output, right? That main power beam, and they can spike it for a few minutes, for an hour, whatever, make it really, really, really hot. And they can drop it down so that over a course of 30 days, it's within the FCC guidelines.
Well,
That's
how do we exchange the FCC guidelines? Is that an avenue to put pressure on the FCC to change their acceptable levels of exposure, for example?
that is the 2021 right landmark case that was ignored when they had 20,000 pages of document, and Scott McCullough was one of the attorneys, the lead attorneys, and they said you've got to update the 1996 Telecommunication Act. That was in 2021, but the courts did not give them a deadline. So now the telecoms, FCC essentially, because they're all one and the same, is saying, okay, yeah, we'll do it someday. And they're not. So that is exactly what they should be addressing. Is there's so much more studies and data and information now than there was in 96 that the so-called FCC guidelines are not guidelines at all. They are causing harm to environment and to health. So this is the thing, is that we're trying to educate people to say, hey, look, we want you to go out there and start doing these meter readings, because it's really, really hot. And what the telecoms do not want us to do, and FCC does not want us to do, is have spontaneous citizen-led testing, period. Because what's going to happen is we're going to catch them red-handed. And so this is something that we've been putting into our local county telecom ordinance we're working on right now with CHD National here in Nevada County, California, is I said to them, hey, look, I want a citizen-led annual testing, RF testing, that would have to be paid by the applicant, like AT&T or Verizon. And they said, oh, you mean the city or the county? You want them to test it? I said, no. I said, I want to be citizen-led. We decide what date. We do not tell the city or county, and we certainly do not tell the telecoms. Why? Because they're going to lower the frequencies. They're going to lower the energy output. They're going to cool it down while the testing is happening. So we don't let them know at all until after the fact.
Right. Well, you better not talk about it or plan it with your smartphones on, because they'll know.
Well, 100%. No, you're 100% right. So it really has to be done on the sly, essentially.
Yeah,
So
you got to go we used to go into the forest. We'd leave our phones in the car in a Faraday bag, go into the forest where there was no, well, the problem, that's how do you get away from the cell service? We've got 3 questions from the audience, and I want to jump in and ask them. The first from Lucy. Question, where I live, the phone company has been installing what they say are fiber optic lines, but they look just like those big black lines. So what is the fiber optic BS?
well, it is fiber optics. It's fiber optics. And what people know is that for years and years and years, we have all been paying for fiber optics to our homes, to our businesses directly.
So it's fiber optics that go to the wire. Oh, God.
Oh yeah, so you have fiber optics all the way. It's underground or it's from pole to pole, right? Like right there, and that's a good thing, right? We want that. But what you
Yeah, fiber optics is a much better technology than cellular.
No, but not if it's not coming into the home. If it then hooks up and delivers through telecom mechanism, it's
that's the
right.
problem. Is it's called the AT&T heist. So we the ratepayers have a little special fee on our bills, and we paid hundreds of billions of dollars to get it to our homes. And instead, I just thought it was just greed before. I thought it was greed. I didn't realize that
No, it's control.
we're paying for
It's
the
control.
backbone of the digital grid prison. And what they do is they bring it so far, and then it's cellular, right? It's wireless. And
Well, but that means it can go everywhere in our home instead of just where we run the cable in.
oh,
So
100%.
instead of me running the cable and putting it in my laptop, so it's not ubiquitous throughout my home, this means complete 24/7 surveillance within the home that I don't control and can't stop.
Wherever you are. So even like for me, I'm all Etherneted in. I have no Wi-Fi in my home, and they plan on putting a 5G antenna on every single light post, minimum 400 feet. Now, let me tell you something. I have very, very dear friends live in Malibu. Malibu is slathered in 5G. And for some reason, Malibu residents go, oh, we don't have 5G. I'm like, do you see that? Do you see that? That's all 5G. I don't know why they don't see it, but nonetheless, my best friend has a 5G antenna, millimeter wave, right in front of her house, about 20 feet away, and they have no cell service.
So one thing I will tell you, I flew from Europe to the United States at the end of August, and I immediately felt much more EMF radiation everywhere I go in the United States, even in the rural areas. And I'm flying back to Europe this Friday, and I can't wait to get back just so this intense pressure on my head goes away.
I have to tell you, Catherine, I hear that reported from so many people who no longer live in the US. They fly in to come visit friends and family, and they're like, holy cow, as soon as you land, you feel it, you get agitated, you get anxious, you feel pressured, brain fog. It's again, as I've said, is if radio frequencies could be seen like smoke, like cigarette smoke, we would all be yelling fire or, let's get out of here and get some fresh
Right.
air. But because it's invisible, that is what is so difficult in this fight is it's invisible. So that
So,
is the importance of the RF meters, because when you start hearing these meters go off and you realize
yeah,
that your cell phone is as
yeah,
hot as a cell tower base, an actual cell tower, and you've got this triangulation going on, which means they can see where you are in your house, where you're moving, whether you're in bed, on the toilet, what you're eating, who you're with, who's visiting. That is what they're doing. And so when
yeah.
you realize, and I say to people that where you start, and you have to reverse engineer your way.
So I gotta interrupt and ask these last two
Sure.
questions. Can you recommend an EMF reader that is effective and affordable? That's on your Telegram channel, isn't it?
Well, that's an acoustimeter is one of them. But what I will do, and I'll make sure to do it today. In fact, I'll jump off of here and do it right away. Is there's several ones now that have gone down in price that actually include millimeter wave, and they used to be cost prohibitive a few years ago, and they have them now. So I'll get them on there on the Hill to Die on Telegram by this morning after.
And will they be on your Substack too?
I'll put it all on the Substack. It'll be on
Great.
the Substack.
Okay.
Mhm.
If
Okay.
you have something that we can put in the notes, you could send it to Lou and he can put it in the
Yeah.
notes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
So a link to the Substack and the Telegram will be in the notes. Okay. From Marley, I lived in a rural area for a long time. We could access the internet through phone cables. Are those the same thing?
No, those are the old cables and they want to get rid of those. They're trying to get rid of those. So they're trying to do fiber optics, underground, pole to pole. Yeah.
Okay. One last question for me. When I came back on this trip into Memphis, uh, I went to see a friend in Germantown, and at night, along all the telecom poles, there are these blue flashing lights that are so creepy. It's unbelievable. And I said to the friend I was visiting, "What is that?" And they said, "Oh, it's something to do with safety and stopping crime." Uh,
No, supposedly, and I haven't seen complete evidence. I've seen some videos, and I have an acoustimeter, but I need to get one that can read millimeter waves. Supposedly, the light posts, the lights themselves are 5G. I haven't had that completely confirmed, but I wouldn't be surprised, to be quite frank, at all. So again, this is why we need people out there. We need citizen-based.
right. If you know what those flashing blue lights are, please let us know.
Yeah.
Last question. If this went into effect, if this prison goes into effect, all the state legislators and local legislators and state and local officials lose 100% power.
100%. It's a coup.
It's a coup. And yet trying to get them educated to understand that is a real challenge. How do we get that entire network of people to understand they are about to be replaced if they don't stop that, and they still have the power to stop it?
Really sending it home and saying, look, do you understand that your public right of way will no longer belong to the city, the county, or the public? Do you realize they can put generators, poles, antennas anywhere? I mean, that will wake them up. Even if they don't care about radio frequencies, they don't like the idea of public right of ways, federal, state, national parks. They don't like that. So that is actually going to grab their attention. So even if, which most of them don't care about RF, but if you say to them, do you understand just the public right of ways alone? The fire danger, right? The emergency danger, the cost. Also, no more, they're not getting fees any longer. They're not going to be making money. So what's happening is they're outsourcing.
Their budget's going to get wiped.
Oh, their budget's going to get wiped, and it's going to come at a cost because, this is the other thing is they do what's called batch applications. So what they can do is they can do 20, they can do like dozens and dozens of applications at the exact same time, and they flood the administration, your city or county administration, which this is all Greek to them, by the way. It's so complicated. And generally they would get thousands of dollars for that because of all the costs, the admin costs. No more. You're on your own. It's going to cost you. So when you talk about money, it's going to cost cities and counties not just tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they're going to be rolling this out in so much, it's going to be like a tidal wave to the admin.
Wow. Okay, well, we're hoping you will come back and join us regularly because the fight's on. We're going to win. We intend to win, but we need leadership, and we can't thank you enough for everything you're doing. So let's just roll through. Tell us your Substack again, and tell us your Telegram channel and how we can support you.
Okay, great. So it's Reinette Senum's foghornexpress.substack.com. Just pop in Foghorn Express Substack, you'll find it. Telegram just put up the group last night, and that is The Hill to Die On. And so The Hill to Die On Telegram, as well as that category in the Foghorn, is if you just want to hear only about that, those are the two places to go to. And we'll hold your hand through the whole process.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I want you to sit down, take a look at how you're spending your time, look at something you can cancel that's draining your energy or wasting your time, and dedicate that time, an hour or two a week, to pushing back, because now the fight's on. We're going to win. You want to be part. It's going to be fun.
And tell all your friends.
Yeah, and while you're at it, use cash. Okay, thanks again. Thank you, Lou. Great job. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Reinette. Have a great week, everyone, and get off the couch and start pushing back.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we're live. So can you tell us your name, please?
I'm Carrie French.
And this is about your baby girl.
Yes.
How long ago were you pregnant with your baby girl?
I got pregnant in February of 1999.
And how did did you have any pregnancy vaccines or anything?
No.
No. And how was she when she was born?
She was born premature. She was born at 25 weeks.
Wow.
And she was a micro preemie, 1 pound, 5 ounces. And she lived for about 5.5 months, but they gave her vaccines at 4.5 months and 4.5 pounds.
Okay, so talk us through this, because we've titled this Military Hospital.
Yes.
Killed your baby girl.
Yes.
So talk us through why you think that.
I was active duty Navy, and I went into labor, and I went to Balboa Medical Hospital. It's technically Naval Medical Center, San Diego. And went into preterm labor, was in labor for 6 days, and I finally had her. It wasn't induced or anything. It was, just natural. But she was in the neonatal intensive care unit for 177 days. And I was there almost every single day for as long as I could stay there. And I would read her medical records, and they didn't like that. And they told me I couldn't, and I said, well, I'm going to, because I'm her mother. And I was reading her medical records, and they said I had to have a doctor. I said, well, then go get him, because I'm reading it. And I said, I want to know everything that's going on with her, even if it's a pimple on her butt. And I came in one day, and they said, oh, Cassie got all her vaccines. And I said,
well, hang on, how old is she then?
She was 4.5 months.
Had not ever left hospital?
Nope, she was still in the NICU.
And so she's still in the NICU, and they gave her, how much did she weigh then?
4.5 pounds.
And what did they give her?
They gave her everything that a 6-month baby would have had, all the regular shots a 6-month-old baby would have had. But they did it without my knowledge or consent, because I would have never consented with her weight. I would have never consented to all those vaccines. I would have said, give her one at a time, because we were getting ready to take her home. She passed all her tests, her AB test, her her car seat test, all of that. And so I wasn't necessarily against vaccines, but then again, I didn't know what I know now. And so I came in, they said, oh, we gave Cassie all of her vaccines. And I said, pretty sure I wanted to know everything that's going on. And at that point, what do? You can't take them back. They're already in her body. So I wasn't necessarily, like I said, I wasn't necessarily anti-vax, but within a week, she started having seizures. And I told the nurse, and the nurse didn't believe me. And I said, I know what a seizure looks like. So, and she was burning up with fever. And then when I took her temperature and I showed the nurse, that they came in and they put her back on the ventilator, which was a huge step backwards. And then another 2 weeks and her brain shut down and her kidneys shut down. Her catheter bag was filled with blood. And I walked in and I knew what it was, but I still said, "What is that?" And they said, "That's her catheter blood, that's her urine." And I knew her kidneys were shutting down, which I knew was one of the stages of death. So they had the conference with me and they told me, we're just chasing her symptoms and we're tired. And I was like, I don't really give a rip. If you're tired, this is your flipping job. So do your job. And I was really angry. And, but I could see that she was dying. She got encephalitis, her head, hydrocephaly. Her head, she got a lot of swelling, and the seizures, the brain, the eyes, she lost all of her function. And they said if she survives, she'll live in a convalescent home for the rest of her life. And I'm like, I want to keep her, but I don't want her to live like a zoo animal. And that's not a quality of life. So I talked with her dad, and I said, he was deployed at the time. He had to come home from deployment. And I talked with him and I said, hey, she's going to die on these machines. So we need to pick a date, and so that we don't miss saying goodbye to her. And so on December 30th, I waited till after Christmas, but on December 30th, we made the decision to take her off life support. And I held her in my arms as she died. And I washed her and dressed her, and I walked her down to the morgue. They weren't going to let me. And I said, oh, the hell you aren't. This is my child. I gave birth to her. I'm walking her to the morgue. So I walked my baby to the morgue. And for 7 years, it was very, very hard. I didn't want to live.
I'm surprised. We have some pictures here.
Yeah.
So,
That's Cassandra Nicole. We called her Cassie.
some more pictures. Beautiful.
She died December 30th, 1999.
And there's no doubt in your mind that
No doubt in my mind.
she would have lived because you were getting ready to take her home.
We were getting ready to take her home. We were making all the arrangements. She had an oxygen cannula, but her SATs were doing well, and she was getting ready to come home. So she passed all of her tests, her car seat test, her apnea and bradycardia tests, and
You killed her.
I don't think it was intentional, but I don't know who thought giving a 4.5 pound, 4.5 month old preemie all her vaccinations on the same day was a good idea. But being military, there's a doctrine called the Ferries Doctrine, and it does not allow active duty military to sue in the event of death. So, yeah.
How are you now? I mean, how old would she have been if she had survived?
In July, she would have been 25.
Well, they ripped your daughter from you.
Yep, that was my only daughter. So I'm doing other things with my life. I volunteered for a while with the March of Dimes and the Lung Association, and went around and talked about, informed consent and parental rights, and so it's what can you do,
What's your advice to the young mum watching now, doesn't know what to do?
Definitely do your research, read all the inserts, don't be bullied by the doctors, and if a doctor tries to bully you, get the hell out of there, because your child, no one will advocate for your child like you will.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
telling me.
Oh, sorry, I just coughed right into your...
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.